happened of child torture, as is also often the case. It was on the day of his 14th birthday, a day he was waiting to hear the results of a story competition he was shortlisted for, that a note slipped out from under the door of the locked room. A note which read, "They have loved you and tortured me for 7 straight years, for no reason other than as an artistic experiment which has worked. You don't write about little green pigs anymore, do you?" The note was signed your brother, and the note was written in blood. He axed through the door to find his parents sitting in there, smiling, alone, his father doing some drill noises, his mother doing some muffled screams of a gagged child. They had a little pot of pig's blood between them. His father told him to look at the other side of the blood-written note. The boy did, and found out he'd won the £50 first prize in the short story competition. They all laughed. The second part of his parents' experiment was complete. They moved house soon after that, and though the nightmare sounds had ended, his stories stayed strange and twisted, but good. And he was able to thank his parents for the weirdness they'd put him through. And years later, on the day that his first book was published, he decided to revisit his childhood home for the first time since he'd left. He idled around his old bedroom, and all the toys and paints still littered around there. And then he went into the room beside it that still had all the old dusty drills and padlocks and electrical cord lying around. And he smiled at the insanity of the very idea of it all. But he lost his smile when he came across the corpse of a 14-year-old child that had been left there to rot, barely a bone of which wasn't broken or burned, in whose hand there lay a story scrawled in blood. And the boy read that story, a story that could only have been written under the most sickening of circumstances. And it was the sweetest, gentlest thing he'd ever come across. But what was even worse, it was better than anything he himself had ever written, or ever would. So, he covered his brother back up. Then he ripped up the story. And he never mentioned a word of what he had seen to anybody. Not to his parents, not to his publishers, not to anybody. The final part of his parents' experiment was over. Couturian's story, The Writer and the Writer's Brother, ended there in fashionably downbeat mode, without touching upon the equally downbeat but somewhat more self-incriminating details of the truer story. That after he'd read the blood-written note and broken into the next-door room, it was, of course, his brother he found in there, alive as such, but brain damaged beyond repair. And that night, while his parents were sleeping, the 14-year-old birthday boy held a pillow over his father's head for a little while. And after waking her a moment, just to let her see her dead blue husband, he held a pillow over his